I'm curious, as you add another person to this list, does this feel different than it has with the other folks?
You know, it kind of does feel different to me. I'll tell you why. It's not a criminal case, of course, so it has a different complexion to it. But the claim that Cap is rebutting, the claim that, you know, Trump's law enforcement efforts, the National Guard deployment have reduced crime, is something that he has repeated frequently, right? The claim that the Trump administration is responsible for the drop in violent crime is a major talking point of this administration, despite the fact that Cap is not the first one to say that there's no basis. We talked about this.
One morning, we did.
We did talk about this.
Way too early.
Right. There was an organization.
Don't invite it.
There was an organization called the Council on Criminal Justice, which had issued a report documenting the drop in crime. The administration has cited them, and so have members of Congress when Todd Blanche was up for confirmation. That group came out and said, we're not saying that this drop in crime had anything to do with the Justice Department. We're still looking at this. So, but the premise that we, the Trump administration, are responsible for this drop in violent crime is the predicate for much of their law enforcement agenda. Right? Including the deployments in various cities, the immigration roundups, all those sorts of things. And so I think it's, candidly, I know we talk like this maybe sometimes too often, but it's a little scary to me that actually the government could come after someone simply for demonstrating, that a key factual claim that the administration keeps using over and over again, including to justify extraordinarily aggressive and abusement law enforcement practices, is not even true. Right? This is not a situation where it's just like, they've offended the president or something like this. This is a core policy issue that is the basis for a whole host of actions by this administration.
Let's just be very clear. It is not. They are not responsible for the drop in crime. It's not debatable if the National Guard reduced urban crime in cities across the country that they were deployed in. Why is it not debatable? Because the National Guard did not operate and does not operate as a law enforcement function. They have nothing to do with urban crime. The urban crime here in Washington, D.C. had to do with lax juvenile laws and curfews or the lack thereof. Perhaps we should get some services and pass another bill, not deploy the National Guard. And so I know we joke like, it's a very litigious administration, and you joke like, don't invite a lawsuit. They want you to be scared. They want us to feel as though we can't say anything, even when it's the truth.
But there's reason to be scared. You're talking about $1 billion lawsuit here.
Does this mean we shouldn't say it?
There has to be a conversation. The universities went through this, right? Harvard fought. They won in the court of law. Other universities settled there. But when you're talking about the future of a major organization, how are you not scared?
Well, wait now.
How is that deliberation not currently happening at CAP?
Well, I don't want to speak for Cap. What is the deliberation? I mean, look, I am someone that believes, and we'll see. And we have invited Neera Tanden on this show when she is going out and doing interviews. And if there is a lawsuit, we will have her on to discuss this. But I have said publicly and privately to anyone that has asked me, particularly when it came to these universities, I thought the universities bending the knee preemptively was crazy. The government was targeting them. They were scared, and they were on solid legal footing. They should have fought. The law firms should have fought. Mark Elias is the best example.
The media
organization should have fought. Never forget, ABC was one of the first to settle, and now this week they're fighting. And if you look at the filing that they actually filed against the FCC, I wrote about this for MS Now this week, so it's coming out tomorrow. They write that they actually stopped booking political folks on The View. They say that they have made different decisions because of the government targeting them. I don't think people should. They are banking on us not challenging it and just going quietly into the night. If the Trump administration wants to make their case on something, go to court and make it. But when they go to court, they've been losing.
And more importantly, if the people like the CAPs or the ABCs or these law firms, if they can't stand up with all that money and resources they have, what hope do the normal Americans walking the street have when they go and play in some water near the Olympian David Hearn?
Yeah, look, CAP is not going to fold on this, right? It would be fatal to their brand to be like,
If you know Neera Tanden,
it would be fatal to their brand on top of all the rest of it. But to Vaughn's point, yes, of course they're going to have to be consulting with lawyers to figure out what their next steps are, and that costs time and that costs money and is a burden. However, this is a ridiculous case. If it is filed, it will be a ridiculous case. Neera Tanden's organization will prevail at the end of the day, I assume. And, it is the case that, these things impose costs, but I share Simone's view that the organizations that are in these spaces, not just political advocacy groups, but the universities and the law firms, they made a tremendous miscalculation last year, acting like Trump was never going to leave office and he was going to be the last president of this country, right? So it would be even stupider. Here we are, headed into midterm elections and Trump being incredibly underwater persistently for someone to now bend the knee to this guy.
Because also today, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court backed Trump's urgent bid, probably what he thinks, to allow the ballroom construction for now. I want to read from this. Chief Justice John Roberts issued an order on Friday that lets the Trump administration continue construction of the White House ballroom for now. The order from Roberts, who handles emergency litigation requests from Washington, backs the administration, at least for the time being, while giving the full Supreme Court more time to decide the issue that ran up against a Friday deadline. This is not the final word. I'm reading time being and for now very clearly. Right. When you heard this, I imagine you, as someone who has harsh words for the Supreme Court often, does that earned harsh words, I think, that you weren't surprised by this. Why do you think they did it? Is there a good reason?
You know what? I'm actually going to maybe take the other side of this very briefly, simply because it is August.
Now I'm about to side-eye you.
No. It's August. It's very difficult. These justices are like members of Congress. They take their vacations more seriously than you can possibly imagine. They're very militant about enjoying their vacations.
Must be nice.
Even as the rest of us. Exactly. So it could be the case that, they need time to read the papers. The responsive papers were only filed on Tuesday. Now, what is going to matter a lot is what happens next week. Because if the conservative justices decide to sit on this, then they are giving the administration what they wanted, and we should we should continue to ask difficult questions about this. I am hoping that Roberts has done this only as a stopgap measure so that the full court can consider it, and so that effectively the status quo, which already benefits the president, can continue for a little bit longer. Because, I'm sure you guys have talked about this, I've talked about this, the whole effort to continue the construction of this ballroom is ridiculous. They have totally contorted the argument about building a ballroom, which Trump has been bragging about for months, including just this week, giving the tour, and now it's an integrated military complex that just happens to have a ballroom on top of it, and some drone port, evidently. It is preposterous that they're claiming that this is like an urgent national security effort and that you can't stop them. It's almost done, yada, yada, yada. This court has greenlit most of what Trump has wanted, with several high-profile and important exceptions. This would be a great time for them to demonstrate that they actually do have a backbone, particularly because this is an issue where there is no actual underlying political question other than Trump's ego. Right? It's not a question where there's an immigration policy issue or there's a question about birthright citizenship or tariffs or whatever. This is just about whether Trump can shove through a ballroom that he can't get his own Congress, right? His own party members in Congress who hold both houses to authorize.